Good afternoon from New York. We're coming on the air with breaking news.
Other big stories, the King of Pop has died.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident.
Kurt Cobain, the leader of one of rock's most gifted and promising bands, Nirvana, is dead, and this is the story as we know it so far.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dead Famous the Pod, where we delve into what really happened to our stars, allegedly. So I'm so excited about this episode today. I've been waiting for the right time to talk about Brittany Murphy. I absolutely adore her. She was a famous actress in the early 2000s who unfortunately passed away prematurely. She is an actress who I absolutely adore. I love. She's probably my favorite, to be honest. And just a fun fact, she was actually the inspiration behind this podcast in general. So when I had this idea to do this podcast, she was the person and her story was what I thought of. And I was like, I feel like people would be into that. Anyway, and here we are. Now I thought because it's episode 10, I wanted to do someone special close to my heart. And also just because of the climate in Hollywood at the moment and everything that's going on there, I just felt like it was appropriate timing. As usual, if you have no idea who I'm talking about, Brittany Murphy was an actress who played in quite a lot of very famous movies. So she played the role of Ty in Clueless, Daisy in Girl Interrupted. It's like a psychological thriller type of movie with Angelina Jolie. And then she played Molly Gunn in Uptown Girls. She was the voice behind Gloria in the kids' animated movie Happy Feet. And honestly, the list just goes on. I feel like the one that stands out to everyone would probably be Clueless. I just feel like it's a movie everyone's seen, but maybe that's just because I'm biased. I literally can say every single line from that movie. But honestly, it's absolutely iconic. It's an iconic movie from the 90s. And without Brittany Murphy's part and character, it literally would not be the same. Anyway, I'm sure all the millennials out there know who I'm talking about when I say Brittany Murphy, but if you still don't, she was in a band in the early 90s and even had a #1 hit in the early 2000s, but I feel like this is something that's not very well known. As I said before, she's my favorite actress, and I honestly had no idea until I started the research for this movie. I knew that she was the voice in Happy Feet, but I didn't know that she was the actual singer. She also dated some pretty high status celebrities in real life. She was linked to Eminem after they did their movie 8 Mile together. And then she was also linked to Ashton Kutcher after they did a movie together called Just Married. The two of them actually never came out and said that they were in some official relationship or anything of the sort. But when you look at photos of the two of them, it's pretty obvious with the way they're touching each other, the way they're looking at each other. And they've spoken very highly of each other in interviews as well. Ashton Kutcher's mum even said to the press that they seemed like they were very much in love and happily in love. It's pretty obvious. And later after their relationship broke down, Brittany Murphy was actually questioned about Ashton Kutcher's new relationship in an interview with David Letterman. He was asking her what she thinks of it. Now, this is when Ashton started dating Demi Moore. Obviously, I don't feel like I need to delve into that because it's not the premise of this episode, but there was a massive age gap between the two of them. So David Letterman asked Brittany what she thought of this, and she basically said he obviously doesn't mind a big age gap and that she, referring to Demi, doesn't mind size. So there's a hint of saltiness, a hint of jealousy there. I don't know. But she did later say that she felt bad for making that comment. But Brittany's most famous relationship was with her future husband, Simon Monjack. There was a lot of speculation and controversy around this relationship from both the public and also private. There was reportedly a big shift in her personality after they started dating, and her friends even staged an intervention before they wed in 2007. But anyway, we'll get into all that later. As usual, I want to get into her upbringing a bit. So Brittany Murphy was born in Atlanta, Georgia on the 10th of November, 1977. Her parents divorced when she was only 2 years old and raised basically completely by her mum on her own. Brittany was always passionate about acting and convinced her mum during high school years to move to LA so that she could pursue that passion. So obviously she's someone who can kind of get what she wants, because that's a big ask. Her mum always believed in her, and literally sold everything they had to go and do that for her. But obviously, lucky for them, it worked out. She landed her first job in Hollywood on a TV show when she was only 14, and her career just took off from there. She got her first big break at just 17 years old when she landed a main character role on the movie Clueless, as I've mentioned before. Unfortunately, though, much like Britney Spears, who I've talked about on this podcast before, Brittany Murphy was heavily attacked by the entertainment industry and the media and all of that. She even didn't get a role in a movie once because she was, quote, not fuckable enough. That is disgusting, but reports say that this is what made her spiral and try to lose a whole heap of weight and stuff, but who really knows? One thing you can tell from photos is that at the beginning of her career, she was a beautiful but like normal kind of girl. She was brunette, she looked happy, and then she like dyed her hair blonde. You know that like classic Hollywood blonde? She looked like she lost a whole heap of weight, and honestly, towards the end of her life, she even looked very, very sickly. It's reported that Britney would do everything she could to try to maintain a skinny weight to land a role in movies, and yeah, she just really got into that disgusting Hollywood lifestyle that's unfortunately pushed upon these people. She did consistently say in interviews, though, that she didn't do drugs, she didn't have an eating disorder, but yeah, that didn't stop the media from speculating regardless. Like, it's an old story, a tale old as time that we've all heard. There were reports that she had erratic behavior, and Perez Hilton even reportedly said in 2009 that she would be the next celebrity to die, which is pretty bloody scary because unfortunately, right in the peak of her career and just 5 days before Christmas of 2009, Brittany Murphy collapsed on her bathroom floor and passed away. It was reported that she had flu-like symptoms in the days leading up to her death, and the coroner didn't report any suspicious activity. But after concluding an autopsy, which is like pretty standard in these high profile kind of cases, it concluded that she died from a combination of pneumonia, anemia, and prescription medication intoxication. There were no illegal drugs found in her system at all. It was only prescription drugs, but there was a lot of them. According to a few different sources, there was an influx of prescription medication bottles found in the bedroom and bathroom of her house, made out to herself, Simon Monjack being her husband, and also Sharon Murphy being her mum, and a few other names which have been confirmed to be used as aliases names for Brittany Murphy, which obviously as celebrities using an alias is pretty common, but to actually get them for medications is, I don't know, that just sounds like a whole nother kettle of fish to me. Just so you get the point, they were all antipsychotic drugs that treat things such as anxiety, depression, bipolar, and stuff like that. While there were no illegal drugs found, these prescription medications can certainly fuck with your body and definitely make your system run down if you abuse them. So something like a simple flu could easily kill you if your body is already in such a fragile state. There was a report from earlier in 2009 that Brittany was hospitalized for low blood sugar, and she was apparently complaining of abdominal pain for 7 to 10 days before her death, which is kind of sad because maybe if she'd seen a doctor, this could have been avoided, her death. But this is where it gets a little bit weird because Brittany's husband, Simon, changed that narrative and actually said in an interview after her death that she was not sick on the lead up to her death at all. And also, just a few months later, in the exact same house, in the exact same place, Simon also died from a combination of both pneumonia and anemia, exactly the same as Brittany. There was some speculation out there that her house had toxic mold in it for reasons which I'll get into soon, but this doesn't really add up to me personally, purely for the fact that Brittany Murphy's mum, Sharon, was living in the house with them as well, and she is still alive and well. She didn't die, she didn't get sick, nothing of that. So I don't know, it could be just a coincidence, don't get me wrong, but the weirdest part about all of this is that the coroner did the report for both Brittany and her husband, and also another lady by the name of Kim Porter, who also allegedly died in the exact same way. But let's go into the toxic mold theory. So basically, people have alleged that there was toxic mold in Brittany's house because she was somewhat hallucinating. So she thought towards the end of her death that maybe her house was haunted. But let me just break this down for you. So in the very beginning, when she first bought her house, Brittany Murphy actually bought the home from none other than Britney Spears in 2003 for a reported $3.5 million. This is also a weird bloody coincidence, seeing as Brittany Murphy is my favorite actress and Britney Spears is my favorite singer. But anyway, just keep up with me here. Brittany Murphy reportedly absolutely hated the house, and Simon reported that when they would drive up towards it on Sunset Boulevard, she would literally beg him to stay at Beverly Hills Hotel. She would beg him to move into a different house, but he told her she was just being paranoid and they had to stay in the house that they owned and stop being silly, basically. They went back just a few days later after staying at Beverly Hills Hotel for a while, and that's when Brittany Murphy died. The important thing to note here, though, is that why Britney Spears actually moved out of the house, and that's because she thought it was haunted too. Her former makeup artist, Julianne, recounted a situation where Britney Spears had some Reiki healing done on her, and she swears that the healer may have accidentally opened some kind of spiritual portal. Julianne tells a story that Britney Spears felt bad spirits in the home and they were trying to push her down the stairs. After this incident, she apparently left straight away. She went and stayed at the Casa Del Mar Hotel and literally never returned back to the home. Now, remember I said just before that a few months after Brittany, her husband Simon died? So Simon's mum has also later said that Simon had been hallucinating prior to his death and feeling like things were crawling out of his skin. But even though forensics went and did a test and did find that the house had some evidence of toxic mold, it was ruled out as a cause of death because neither Simon or Brittany had any evidence of this in their system. Another weird thing for Brittany Murphy is that in the exact spot she died in her house was apparently her, quote, comfort zone, where she would spend hours reading magazines, singing to herself, writing poetry, all of that. Now, I don't know if there's a connection in this specific part of the house between her and Britney Spears, but it's pretty crazy, and that has to be a pretty big coincidence that both of them thought that the house was haunted and living in it just one after the other. And the house was even later pulled down due to the controversial nature of it. So the next thing I want to discuss is the weirdness of Britney's husband, Simon Monjack himself. Now, just to keep it all clear, from going forward, when I say Britney, I'm talking about Brittany Murphy. The chapter with Britney Spears is over, okay? So Simon and Brittany Murphy got married in 2007, and we know that they met at a party, but according to Simon, they actually met first when she was younger, and he reportedly said that Brittany was, quote, too young to touch when he first met her, but that he was very patient. Ew. Anyway, the two were apparently inseparable, but as I mentioned before, her friends had some concerns due to the nature of the relationship. Simon was reportedly very controlling, and to the point that Brittany was actually cut off from all of her friends. Literally, even her whole team, including managers, makeup artists, they were all eventually fired, and Simon ran the entire show, which, to be such a high status celebrity like Brittany Murphy was, that is fucking insane not to have a whole team around you. Well, maybe not a whole team, but you definitely need people behind the scenes running the show. So I don't know, it's just giving weird vibes. He even went with her on set while she was filming movies, and she was reportedly too anxious to participate in kissing scenes without his say-so. I don't know about you, but I just feel like if you're married or even want to date someone who's an actor, these are things that come with that. You've just kind of got to deal with and accept their job and what they need to do, the nature of their job. I don't know. I will just never understand this. If you're a jealous person, why are you dating someone like an actress who's going to be kissing other people? It's literally the same as like when people start dating other people who have kids and then like don't want them to see their kids and like take them away from their kids and stuff. Like, why did you choose someone with children? It's just, I'll never understand it. But anyway, I just want to quickly note that in a documentary that was made about the life of Brittany Murphy, an ex-girlfriend of Simon's actually speaks out and attests to his abusive and controlling behavior and even also compulsive lying, she says. She also reveals that Simon had secret children who Brittany never knew about and never found out about. The one person who Brittany was not cut off from, though, was her mum, Sharon. And as I said before, the three of them even lived in the same house together. They obviously all got pretty close, and it's fairly obvious that they all took the prescription drugs together. Anyway, so it's all a bit weird. But the very next day after Brittany died, which obviously was a complete shock as she didn't have a long-term illness or anything like that, Simon actually reached out to Access Hollywood for an interview. Bloody weird. Like the very next day after he dies, that's what you think is appropriate to do? Like, hello, maybe take some time to grieve. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. But anyway, he said that his world was destroyed and that Brittany had been suffering from some flu-like symptoms, but otherwise she's been okay. Now, at this point, he didn't really comment on the details of her death, but he does later on in the beginning of 2010, just a couple months after she died. Simon recalled on Larry King Live that there was a power outage in the early hours of the night that she died, and about roughly 3 a.m. went out on the balcony to get some air. He said that pretty rapidly she started to decline and she started gasping for air. He even yelled out to his mother-in-law, Sharon, who was living with them at the time, to come and help because it was such a hectic situation. Simon and Sharon both later told The Hollywood Reporter that Brittany told her mum that she didn't feel well around 7:30 in the morning, and then she died at about 8 a.m. Police were called pretty much straight away, and unfortunately later Brittany was pronounced dead in the hospital at around 10 a.m. Pretty soon after her death, Simon sent out invitations in the hope of launching the Brittany Murphy Foundation. Guests were reportedly suggested to donate up to $10,000. I'm sorry, what? Maybe in a situation where they've passed away, it's been a little while, and they want to raise money for something and for charity and things like that, but they didn't even note what the Brittany Murphy Foundation was going to be for. And yeah, it was very shortly after her death. But this was quickly cancelled as Simon and Sharon said they were dealing with too much grief to go through with it. Now, this is the weird part that I personally find really just creepy. Sharon was still living in the house with Simon, and sources close to them alleged that they even started sharing the same bed after Brittany died. What the fuck? Like, in the marital bed that Simon and Brittany once shared, now she's died and her mum's just come in and started sharing that bed with him? I'm sorry. No, it's a no from me. In an attempt to like diffuse the situation, Simon and Sharon did a photo shoot together, like trying to show themselves grieving, I guess. In one of the photos, which I'll post on my Instagram account at DeadFamousAPod, you can literally like see them holding a portrait of Brittany. But the photos are just weird. They legit look like husband and wife or something. They're like cuddling, standing really close to each other, looking into each other's eyes, like his arms around her in like this weird, loving, affectionate way. It's just all bloody weird. You need to go look at those photos if you haven't seen them, because it's very strange. And in the photo they've even chosen of Brittany Murphy herself, you know how I just said they had one in a portrait of her, they've chosen this really odd photo. Like, she has this black wig on and mascara running down her eyes, and she's holding a cigarette. Like, it's very artsy vibes. But in terms of like, if you want to do a photo shoot holding a portrait of your dead daughter / wife, I just feel like it's not the appropriate photo to use. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe just choose one of her smiling or something. I don't know. Anyway, on top of this, they decided to do a Larry King interview together in 2010, and Simon repeatedly refers to Sharon as baby. what the fuck? Simon was also planning to move back to New York, where he was from, after Brittany died, and he even was planning on taking Sharon with him. He did note that they would get separate houses, but I still find it really odd. Like, that's such a stretch to bring your mother-in-law with you. I get maybe that you've had this situation happen to the both of you and you're grieving together, and I understand that, but it just seems to be a little too close to home. But the pair did insist during that Larry King interview that I mentioned that they were nothing more than family, and that the insinuations were, quote, awful and ridiculous. But I don't know. I'm going to let you decide after you see the pictures, and I'm going to let you decide on what your conspiracy theory is after you've heard all these details. But as usual, I'm going to end this episode with a movie recommendation, but this time I'm actually going to give you two, because there's two movies I absolutely love of Brittany Murphy's that I literally can't pick between. So the first one is like a rom-com vibe, but it's also very, very sad. That's called Uptown Girls. It has Dakota Fanning when she was little. It is an amazing movie. It's also a great movie when you need a bit of a pick-me-up, when you're like in a sad and sorry state. And then the next movie is a horror movie called Deadline. Brittany Murphy's performance in that movie was just amazing. I'm not really the biggest horror fan, but I loved that movie. So yeah, anyway, that's all I have time for at the moment. So thank you so much for listening. If you like this, can you subscribe to me, please? That would be amazing. I would really appreciate it. And anyway, stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you next time.